Aston Martin have spent an entire summer building nothing. So they could build one thing, no smaller updates, no in-between steps, one car, one weekend, one swing. Adrian Newey has confirmed it himself. The Aston Martin AMR 26B spec, a new nose, a new floor and a major weight reduction, and lands at the Hungarian Grand Prix in Budapest. The question is not whether it is faster. It will be faster. The question is whether faster is enough. When Fernando Alonso was lapped twice at Spa. All this in this video, because this is not just the final race before the summer break, it is the weekend that decides whether Fernando Alonso still wants to be in Formula 1 at all. Budapest, the basics. Here is the quick version if you only want the facts. The Hungarian Grand Prix is round 11 of the 2026 Formula 1 season, held at the Hungaroring near Budapest, with the race on Sunday, July 26th. Aston Martin arrived with their long-awaited B-spec upgrade, designed by Adrian Newey, featuring a new nose, revised aerodynamics and a major weight reduction. The Hungaroring is a slow, high downforce circuit, and Pirelli have brought the softest tires in the range, the C3, C4 and C5. Now let us set the stage properly. This is round 11. The Hungaroring just outside Budapest. Practice Friday the 24th. Qualifying Saturday the 25th. Race Sunday the 26th. The last stop before everyone disappears for the shutdown. Here is the one thing you need to understand about this place. It is slow, it is twisty, and it has almost no straights. Teams run the same maximum downforce here that they run at Monaco. That is the reference point. Monaco with a bit more room. And that single fact rewrites the whole weekend after Spa. At Spa, the drivers were starved. All those long straights drained the battery from the top to the bottom before you even reached a corner. Budapest is the opposite. Braking zone after braking zone, traction zone after traction zone, which means full energy regeneration in qualifying, healthy deployment, and none of that clipping we watched down the Camel Straight. Kimi Antonelli said it plainly. He expects all four top teams to be close here, because the battery problems disappear and it becomes a track where you just drive as fast as you can. On tires, Pirelli have gone soft. The hard is the C3, the medium is the C4, the soft is the C5, the softest they have. But do not be fooled by the compounds. Budapest eats tires, high track temperatures, endless traction zones, and historically a mix of 1 and 2 stop races. Last year, 29 pit stops across the field and 35 on track overtakes. Because overtaking here is hard but not impossible, especially when the tires fall away. For your reference points, last year Charles Leclerc took pole with a 1 minute 15.372. George Russell set the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 19.409. So that is the track, downforce tires and the racing coming back to life after the energy nightmare of Belgium. Now, the team everyone is actually watching. Aston Martin. The whole season, riding on one weekend. Let us be honest about where this team is. The AMR 26 is fundamentally the same car it was in preseason testing. That is not me being dramatic. While every rival evolved, race by race, part by part, Aston Martin sat on their hands and banked the money. They skipped the small stuff. They took the pain. And they gambled the entire back half of their season on one package landing in Budapest. This is that package. And it has Adrian Newey's fingerprints all over it. Start with the weight. Newey has confirmed a significant weight reduction in the chassis and the gearbox. They have been chasing the minimum limit that some teams still have not even reached, and the reports are damning. Combine the engine, the aero, the gearbox and all the tired old heavy pieces, and the current car was carrying more than 30 kilograms of excess. 30 kilograms. That is not a setup tweak. That is lap time you are simply throwing away every single lap. A big chunk of this entire upgrade is just finally getting to the weight everyone else got to months ago. Then the aero, a completely new nose, a new front wing, and substantially revised surfaces across the car. Ottmar Schafnauer has been quoted talking about gaining roughly 90 points of downforce. So when the cars roll out on Thursday, this will not look like the car we have watched embarrass itself all season. This is a big visual change. Different nose, different philosophy up front, a genuinely different machine. The rear suspension gets a light revision. The front stays. The core chassis concept and the gearbox layout stay broadly the same in idea, but now with the weight finally stripped out. And here is the part nobody is talking about enough. The schedule. Mike Craig called it the million-dollar question, whether this team actually turns up in Budapest with 2 complete cars or a pile of new parts and a lot of hope. He thinks they will have 2 cars, but he admitted plainly that they will not have 5 spares of everything. New nose, new wing, new gearbox internals, revised rear suspension, all introduced at once, all under a brutal deadline. So what do we actually expect? Here is the honest analysis, and this is the bit that matters. Newey says the upgrade is worth seconds a lap. The internal number people are throwing around is a step of somewhere between 2.5 and 3 seconds. That sounds enormous, and it is enormous, but look at the hole they are climbing out of. At Spa, Aston Martin were 4 to 5 seconds off the front. Fernando Alonso, a two-time world champion, was lapped twice at the longest circuit on the calendar. Twice. In qualifying, he was 2 seconds off the nearest Cadillac. He finished 19th. Lance Stroll retired with a gearbox problem. That is the starting point. So do the math with me. If this gain is measured against Spa, a track that brutally exposed this car, then 2.5 seconds does not put them in the points. It drags them back toward Cadillac and into the midfield scrap. If the gain holds against a normal track, then they are genuinely back in the fight. That is the entire tension of this weekend, not whether the car is quicker. It is quicker. The question is whether it is quicker by enough and whether it is quicker everywhere. My view, I think the package works. The direction is right, the weight saving is real and impossible to argue with, and they have quietly clawed back small gains in deployment over the last few races. But nobody closes 4 to 5 seconds in a single weekend. If they can halve that gap here and unlock the rest after the break, I call that a win. The two ways this still goes wrong. Even if the car is fast, there are two traps. 1. Reliability. You do not introduce a new nose, new aero, a revised gearbox, and new rear suspension all at once under deadline and expect it to run clean. New parts break. That is the nature of a swing this big. 2. Integration. You do not extract everything from a car this different in one weekend. 3 practice sessions to understand a machine that behaves nothing like the old one. And Craig has already admitted they have contingency plans for if 1 or 2 components do not make it in time. Which leads to the specific thing I would watch. If one of those 2 cars picks up early damage, and given his Spa retirement and his history, I would be watching Lance Stroll. That driver could be forced to run a mixture of new and old parts. And a Frankenstein car, half new and half old, wrecks the data and wastes half the point of the entire exercise. And do not forget, the engine is not here yet. One more layer, because this is where people get the story wrong. The big aero and chassis package lands in Budapest. The engine does not. Honda's power unit upgrade comes at Zandvoort after the break. Shintaro Orihara confirmed the new engine is already on the dyno. Early signs in line with expectations, focused on combustion efficiency and drivability. So the full Aston Martin picture only completes after the summer. Budapest is the chassis verdict. Zandvoort is the power verdict. Put those together and you understand what this weekend really is. The first real test of a 2-part recovery, how we judge them on Sunday. So how do we actually score this? Do not expect points. It is possible, because this is a downforce track and downforce is exactly what this package adds. But nailing everything in one weekend is very hard. Here is my line in the sand. If Aston Martin roll out of Budapest still 2 seconds behind Cadillac, this becomes a crisis. That is when the big decisions start swinging. That is when heads start rolling. And that is when Fernando Alonso's future with this team becomes a very real question. Newey promised seconds a lap. If it does not show up, this upgrade defined the season for all the wrong reasons. But if they show clear, measurable progress, if the car looks reborn even without the perfect result, then the direction is proven, the trust is rebuilt, and the Zandvoort engine gives them a genuine second wind. That is the whole story of this weekend. Not a race win, a verdict. So here is your checklist. 1. Do 2 complete Aston Martins actually roll out, or do we get a mixed spec car? 2. What is the real gap to Cadillac in qualifying? That is the number that tells you everything. 3. Does the package survive a full race distance, or do the reliability gremlins bite? 4. Watch Alonso. Not his lap times, his body language. This weekend may quietly decide whether he is on the grid next year. Everything this team sacrificed all summer comes down to these 3 days. Tell me in the comments, does the Aston Martin upgrade work, or is this the weekend it all falls apart? Subscribe, because we are covering this one same day from inside the paddock. See you in Budapest.